Actually, the first question is, do startups need to become unicorns?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is no. So I like to think of myself as a coach. You should be willing to lose whatever money you're investing. Now, get your customer to fall in love with you. Your biggest worry is you will raise money from the wrong investor. We're not necessarily the right investors for lots of entrepreneurs.
Welcome to Eureka Movement. Today we have a genius, investor, influencer and philanthropist. He is a doctor by profession, angel investor as a businessman and an influencer by hobby. He is very active in startup ecosystem and always sharing his experience and knowledge to many entrepreneurs. We are honored to welcome Dr. Aniruddha Malpani, founder of Malpani Fertility Clinic and Malpani Ventures, who will be sharing with us a lot of insights about his initiatives and his Eureka movement. So thank you, doctor, for coming to Eureka movement. And to take this interview, we have divided it into 4 rounds.
Sure.
Starting with the first round, which is called as pitch deck.
So I need to warm myself up and get ready, right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, so it's a pitch deck round. Alright. Your first question is, what is the similarity do you find between a doctor and an investor?
As a doctor, one of the important things I do is try to educate patients, because there's still a lot of mistrust between doctors and patients. Patients don't understand what doctors want and vice versa. I'm seeing exactly that same kind of trust deficit between entrepreneurs and investors. And again, we're trying to use education to bridge the gap, just like we do it between doctors and patients. We're trying to do the same thing between entrepreneurs and investors. Unless entrepreneurs learn to trust investors, this ecosystem is not going to take off. So I think perhaps there is that common denominator, all of which based on respect. We need to respect the patient, and on education, what I call information therapy, or empowering the end user. Does that make sense?
Of course, definitely.
So what are the qualities a good angel investor should have?
Okay, you should be willing to lose whatever money you're investing. Now, that sounds very contrarian. I mean, hey, you're putting in money in order to multiply it. I get that. But I think people need to have realistic expectations. And I always tell people, only invest money in startups which you can afford to lose without losing sleep over. That's really important, because the reality is startups are fragile. These are complex. Lots of things can go wrong. Lots of things do go wrong. The base rate is that 90% of them aren't going to do well. You can't afford to forget that base rate. You can't afford to be arrogant and say, I'm so smart, I've made so much money. I can look at someone in the eye and say, Arey, ye to banda definitely unicorn banega. None of us can do that. And I think you need to be a little humble. You need to be a little curious about what's happening in the world. I think it's okay to do it for financial reasons, provided you understand that that's not enough. And frankly, for me, the financial reason is neither necessary or sufficient.
So coming to the startups thing and all, so do you think funding is really necessary for a startup to become a unicorn?
Actually, the first question is, do startups need to become unicorns? And I think the answer is no. I think sometimes that's a very distorted narrative which we get because of the media, the press, the VCs. We all get fascinated by billions, and I think that's fine. Great to watch on TV. But I don't think those are realistic aims, because those are the outliers. Those are the minorities. What do you want to do with your life? You want to add value to someone else's life. How you do that is up to you, as a teacher, as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is. And what does adding value mean? You create something which people are willing to give you something else for. It could be respect, if you were a priest, for example, or it could be money, which is the standard metric which a business should use. So I think as long as you focus on that, and as long as you're providing value to a customer who's willing to pay for it, I think you're successful. So you shouldn't measure success in terms of how much money you actually make. That's a side effect. If it happens, great. Even if it doesn't happen, I think that's great too. So I think this entire funding business is a narrative which is driven by investors. Let's be honest. Because entrepreneurs तो पैसा मिला नहीं मिला वो तो business run करेंगे. अगर हमको entrepreneurs नहीं मिले पैसे देने के लिए तो हम हमारा business कैसे run करेंगे, so to say. So I think money has a very useful role to play, provided it's used sensibly. I think a lot of the stuff has got messed up. The first thing entrepreneurs are doing these days is preparing business plans and going out to investors and pitching. makes no sense to me.
Yes.
You know, your first focus is find a customer. Get your customer to fall in love with you. Let him say, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Let him sell your product to other customers. Once you've reached that stage, once you're actually generating revenue from existing customers, investors will line up to give you money.
Of course.
That's the right position to be
Yeah.
in. But I think people lose sight of that. That's not sexy enough, or it's not cool
glamorous,
enough.
Yeah. It's not glamorous at all.
So what is the process that you follow when an entrepreneur asks you for a funding?
What we try to do is follow a process which is open and transparent. So we're trying to create an equal platform. We're not saying that you need to be from IIT or IIM to reach out to
Yeah.
us. We're saying, please reach out to us. We're available digitally. I also say these are the filters and sieves we use. We're not necessarily the right investors for lots of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You may be too early, you may be too late, you may want too much money, you may not fit what my philosophy is. And the worst thing in the world to do, you know, a lot of people think, if I don't make money, what's going to happen to me? If I don't raise money from investors, what's going to happen to me? They have all these nightmares and
It's
The
becoming
biggest worry though is not that you will not be able to raise money from an investor. Your biggest worry is you will raise money from the wrong investor. That will cause you far more sleepless nights than anything will. So you've got to be really picky and careful and choosy. And entrepreneurs sometimes don't remember that. So therefore we are very transparent. We say these are the rules. This is what we try to follow. And because it's all public, I have to follow the rules. Because if I break them, someone will say, Dr. Malpani baatein badi karta hai, lekin karta kuch aur hai. So I'm holding myself accountable by doing it publicly. Having said that, rules are designed to be bent and broken. So as long as someone is reasonable, someone says, you know, I understand your pre-money valuation is 7 crores, but I think I deserve 14 crores because of the following reasons, we're always willing to have a conversation, we're always willing to open. But we also say have conversations digitally. Provide as much information as you can digitally. This is the structure and the format. We'll ask you more questions. And then perhaps if things are working out, then we'll be more than happy to invite you, talk to you, start the due diligence process, all of which takes time. So I need to be careful about how to use my time, that's all.
Entrepreneurs or patients, they always need help. So how do you help them cope with the shortcomings?
I think that's a good point. And I think a lot of role which we play as a doctor is not just a question of making a diagnosis, ordering a test or writing a treatment. A lot of it is also emotional support, especially for someone like IVF, where you're never sure what the outcome is going to be. You're never sure whether she'll get pregnant the first cycle, whether it'll take 2, whether it'll take 3, whether she gets pregnant, whether she'll miscarry. It's like an entire journey. And your job as a doctor is also to hold a hand during that journey, so that no matter what happens, whatever the final outcome, none of us can control outcomes. The process should be a happy and a positive one. That yes, I did my best. So when she's 50, she never feels, I wish I'd done this and I wish I hadn't done this. And I think it's exactly that same role when you're playing your role as an investor, that we are there for you. We try not to provide answers. How can I provide answers? He's the domain expert. He's the one who's living in the trenches. We can provide a 30,000 foot view. So I like to think of myself as a coach, more as a guide, more as a mentor, in the sense I'm available. If you can figure out your answers for yourself, great. You know, you don't need me, even better. If you do need me, I'm always available here for you. But if you need me, it's very unlikely that I will tell you what to do, because I can't answer that question. But you know what? Maybe I can tell you what book to read. Or maybe I can tell you a story of someone else who was in that position and what he did and how it worked for him. And then you can draw your own lessons. So I think of myself more as an enabler. Ultimately, everyone needs to lead their own life, have their own journeys. So what can we do to make the process happy and a positive one? And quite honestly, in that process, I learn a lot. Because patients sometimes come up with very unexpected solutions, and so do entrepreneurs. So you kind of say, yes, this is what we think is available for you. So think of it this way, a bit like a parent and a child, that you give kids a little playground to play with. You have a boundary, you have a field. You can say within this, do what you like, but this much is safe. You can do what you want. So you're also telling the patient, we will not let you make a wrong decision. We will not let you do anything stupid. I'm still the doctor in the room. I'm the professional. I have your back. You're telling the entrepreneur the same thing also. That, you know, this is how much money you have. Be careful about how you choose to deploy. Within that, ultimately, it's going to be your call because it's your business and your company.
Yeah. What are the steps in your decision-making process? So you must be thinking like, okay, I've got this information now from the entrepreneurs and all. Now what is your steps for decision?
Do you want the real truth or do you want the artificial version? Because the artificial version, life is always lived forward, but when you tell stories, you tell them backwards.
Yes.
So it's like, I saw that guy and I could see that this is going to do well.
Yeah.
We say that for our success stories. What about all the 99 other failures where we did exactly the same thing? We never talk about those. So what's my limited point? We're not very good at doing this. And I think we need to be willing to accept that we are going to make mistakes. And we don't have to beat up on ourselves on making mistakes. We will make mistakes both sides. We will fund people who perhaps didn't deserve to be funded. We will also end up failing to fund people who perhaps deserve to be funded. We're human just like everyone else. Just because I happen to have more money doesn't make me infallible, doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. And my only point is, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. Next year I want to make a new set of mistakes. So hopefully at some point, I'll become incrementally smarter. That's the hope. But the reality is that you need to fall in love with the entrepreneur. Now that sounds very vague, that sounds very wishy-washy. How do you describe something? But the reality is that's the way our brain is wired. We have two layers in the brain, the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain. Now we all think we are very logical people, very rational, we're able to think things through. But the reality is your reptilian brain first tells you yes or no, and then you use your logic to justify the yes or no. Now the point is we're aware of these, so we try to factor these in, but in spite of that, we still end up. So at some point you've got to say, I like the story which this guy is saying. Story doesn't sound like a very sensible thing to be betting on, but it is all stories. I like the story, I like the person who's saying it, I then triangulate, it fits in with my thesis, I like what he's done so far, let me observe him for the next month or so, let me do all my checks. So then you check as a customer, you check with his employees, you check with his, whoever else you can, his ex-employees, his bosses, what kind of person, and then at some point, boss, you have to sign the check. Signing the check is the easy bit. Let me know. It's afterwards that you kind of.
But so love at first sight does happen in this case.
Yes, it does. It does. I think that's fine. We consciously try to prevent that, if you know what I'm saying, because we also understand the vulnerabilities and we understand that sometimes that's not a smart thing to do, but it does. And then what we at least try to do within Malpani Ventures is, and I think most people will do that, is we will play a devil's advocate role. Where if someone says, yes, we need to sign a check, you need to find someone who will tell you 10 reasons why you should not sign the check. And then at some point someone has to say, okay, yes, I agree with you, or it makes sense, or let's try. And you take baby steps. The reality is that what happens before funding is sometimes different from what happens afterwards. After the funding, you start getting more granularity, more data points. It's not just the performance, it's also the attitude of the entrepreneur. And that's all intangible stuff.
Being an angel investor and as well as doctor, what are the challenges you face in day-to-day life?
So, in some respects, I've been very fortunate because people ask, how do you manage to do both these roles? And the good thing about being an IVF doctor is, everything is by appointment, it's fixed, it's well organized. It's not like I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to deliver a baby. So life is well organized. Plus, I do it with my wife, who's a much better doctor than I am. So, I'm kind of there, but she's there all the time. So she's the same. So that obviously makes a big difference. That takes off a lot of my, and that's true even for the angel investing piece. Because like I said, it's my money, I can sign the check. But then I have a family office, which is run by Manish Gupta, who understands a lot of this stuff about, how to interpret balance sheets, how to talk to entrepreneurs. So there are other people doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So for me, I can kind of, balance it so that I do what I enjoy doing. The beauty at my stage in life is I don't need to do anything I don't like doing. So if I enjoy doing it, and I will continue doing it. If at some point I get bored or something else, I'll happily reinvent myself. It's a big world out there. I'll figure out something. I'll figure out what else I want to do. But I'm having so much fun and enjoying what I'm doing so much that I'm quite happy continuing doing it.
So anything when it comes to people approaching you, is that a challenge for you? Like so many people are just asking for Malpani's time, right?
Absolutely right. So I think two things. One is I tell people, a lot of people, and especially young entrepreneurs, have this sense of entitlement.
Yes.
And especially when they read all the Silicon Valley culture, can I have a cup of coffee, can I have a cup of tea?
Yeah.
And I think you need to learn to respect other people's time.
Yes.
And when we say respect other people's time, doesn't mean I'm being arrogant or saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you. It just means that I need to slot my day accordingly.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's why we have certain, just like for patients, that's why we have appointments, we have slots, we have schedules, and therefore patients are respecting my time and taking an appointment and coming.
Yeah.
We want exactly the same thing with an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Send me an email, tell me why you want me to meet. Do I think I'm the right person for you? If I'm not, then why would I want to waste your time? A lot of people get very excited. Arey, entrepreneur ne mujhko office mein bulaya. Then they start seeing stars in their eyes and stuff like that. I don't like wasting people's time. Call a spade a spade. If I'm not right, move on. There's no shortage of investors. So I still think finding the match is important. That's true for patients.
Yeah.
Some patients I will say, look, I'm not the right doctor for you. Or, this is just not the right thing. You need to find someone else. I think that works.
Yeah.
What are the different pitfalls every entrepreneur should avoid?
We only have 5 minutes. This will take a full day then if I have to describe pitfalls. And the reality is that everyone will have new ones.
Yeah.
So I think there are multiple ways of looking at it. If I had to broadly define it, I would say internal and external. And I think it's your internal challenges which are far more important than the external challenges. External challenges will come and go, and they'll be in the form of hiring, firing, money, investors, competition, 50 different things. I think it's finally what you have inside here. And I think if you have that confidence in yourself, that this is what I want to do with my life, that's not easy, let me tell you. There will be days when you will doubt your sanity. There will be days when your wife will doubt your sanity. Pagal hai kya? Can't you think anything else to do? Look at your friend, wo itna sab kar raha hai, tu to gada, why atka hua hai, so many things. So I think you need that clarity in yourself, and that's what I call the inner scorecard. And it doesn't matter whether you run $1 million company, whether it's $1,000 or any of. I think that's all BS.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're only answerable to yourself. So I think people who are spiritual, people who meditate, people who understand the importance of being happy on the inside will automatically find it, whether they choose to run a startup or whether they choose to join a job.
Yeah.
And none of this is rocket science. I mean, this is something which the Gita, everything has been saying for donkey's years. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
What are the things we look for in life? There are basically 3. One is called autonomy or independence, which you can get as an entrepreneur. The second is mastery, that whatever you do, can you really be good at it?
Yeah.
And the last is purpose. Why am I
Why
doing this? And I think the great thing about at least trying to be an entrepreneur is it gives you that magic combination.
Yes.
Now, you may be successful, you may not, and I think that's important. Your definition of success should not be someone else's definition of success.
Yeah.
Okay, at least I tried. At least I learned what I could do. I learned what I couldn't do. And irrespective whether your startup goes belly up or not, you will be a better person as a result of this.
Yeah.
You will be a better employee. You will be a better, CEO, whatever else. I can't answer those questions. But don't be short-sighted about it. And if you do it for yourself, for selfish reasons, you'll automatically be okay with yourself. That's all I will say.
So we are done with the first round of this interview, and now we'll start with the most important round of this interview, the Eureka moment round. So Dr. Aniruddha, can you please share your Eureka moment with us?
Okay, a lot of people wonder why, when you're doing well as an IVF doctor, you also want to be an angel investor. What's this need or scratch to reinvent yourself? Now, I'm a second generation doctor. I was pretty sure that I was going to be a doctor and did very well in college, got everything else. Neither of my daughters did medicine, and they didn't do medicine because we told them not to do medicine. Which some people find a little surprising. Don't doctors' kids automatically, you have a ready-made practice, you have a great brand. And there were multiple reasons for that. But as it happened, both of them didn't do medicine, and the older one, she finally did an MBA from Stanford. And what I told my wife is that we can't afford to become irrelevant to our daughters' lives. Because it's like, once they start, we're doing business, we're doing all this stuff, daddy and mommy don't understand all this. Yeah, they're very good, they're okay with taking care of patients, but unko business ke bare mein kya samajhta hai, balance sheet kya samajhta hai, EBITDA kya samajhta hai. And that bothered me a little bit, that ultimately you need to be able to understand what your kids are doing. And my philosophy in life is everything can be taught, everything can be learned if you're interested in doing it. But the best way of doing it is to have skin in the game, to actually be interested in what's happening. And I thought this was a great way of then getting introductions into the startup space where you actually put your money where your mouth is. And in one sense, I think I was very fortunate because the startup ecosystem in India is still very immature.
Yeah.
I still think it has a long way to go. So at least that way you're getting off on the early stages. You're fortunate that at this stage in your life you have enough extra, I wouldn't say money to burn, but enough extra capital to invest so that even if, for example, you don't get a return, it doesn't cause sleepless nights, you're willing to do that. You get a chance, as I said before, to then start hanging out with people who are roughly the same age as your kids.
Yep.
So then you understand the way they think, where they are. And I always tell my wife that, at least if for no other reason, then your daughter will respect you a little bit more. Okay, maybe daddy will invest in my startup or my company. Who knows any of these things? So I think it's just a question of, can I possibly figure some of this stuff out? Because as a doctor, who teaches you any of this stuff?
Yes.
You're so focused on taking care of patients one-on-one that you kind of lose sight of the big picture. And I was definitely guilty of that. And I think the good thing is that, yes, we're good at looking at a microscope, but when you look at the business sense, you're also good at looking at stuff through a telescope, and you get a much more overall balanced, holistic perspective.
Yes.
That can you also do things one consumer at a time, or one patient at a time, or one widget at a time, all the way to what can you do if you had to impact the lives of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people. To that extent, I always tell people, we taught our daughters, and now life comes full circle and our daughters teach us, so that we understand what they're saying, we understand what they're talking about, it's relevant. So the older one has now come back to India, she's going to do a startup on her own, so at least you understand some of what she's doing and why she's doing it. So it's been very fulfilling.
Yeah. So we have come to the end of our second round and moving to the third round, which is the uno de tres.
Yeah. So 3 sectors you feel is worth investing for the future.
One thing I will say, I'm very domain agnostic, so I don't have any preconceived notions. I definitely have a soft corner for social impact because I think those opportunities are huge. So my soft corner is healthcare and education.
Okay.
I think the multiplicative effect, the systems are completely broken, won't require too much to improve some of these things. And I think a lot of this has to be a very bottom-up approach.
Yeah.
And today the reason it's broken is it's all top-down, very commercial, all the wrong incentives.
Yeah.
So therefore those are the things I'm extremely hopeful about. But these are very long-term plays. Don't expect anything to happen in 5 years.
Yeah.
It'll take longer. But
Yes.
So a lot of students are watching who wants to be an entrepreneur or a doctor. So what are the 3 advices you want to give to them?
I think the most important advice I would give is that please understand that no one has the right answers. It's not your parents, it's not your teachers, it's not your colleagues or whatever else. I think the right answers have to come from within you. And the great thing about being young is you have the energy and you have the luxury of time to be able to make these mistakes and recover from these mistakes. Most young students today will end up changing lots of careers, lots of options. So explore all your options. Don't do just something just because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any difference. The more you copy other people, the more you will end up getting exactly the same results they did. And is that really what you want to do? Such a shame. Why aren't you willing to say, no, okay, this is what I think makes sense for me.
Yeah.
I can march to my own drumbeat and I don't need validation or guidance from anyone else. And I think fortunately you're in that position. We're still a developing country. We still have a long way to go. But that's what makes India so much fun. See, if you're in a place, for example, which is saturated, where everyone's wealthy, everyone has this thing, your opportunities are much less. But in India, because you're growing like this, your demographic sweet spot, your economy is booming, I think your opportunities are much more.
So coming back to your investment side, so 3 investment opportunities you don't want to miss.
I don't have any fear of missing out. And the reality is that I know that I will miss out on great opportunities, but I'm not fussed about it because I know other opportunities will come. So at some point you can say, oh, I missed the next Facebook, or I missed. I think that's, and as I said, that's really not my philosophy or not my style.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. This is much more the Warren Buffet, that I have 10 swings in my entire lifetime, but I will wait till I get the right pitch before I'm willing to swing. So I'm honestly not fussed about it.
3 new things you're going to start or already started.
So I think when you say new things, some of the stuff we started a long time ago, but hasn't seen as much traction as we would like it to be. And one of is, like I said before, the patient education, whether it's digital, whether it's real world, whether it's online, that's one of the things. But I'll tell you some of our dreams. one of our dreams would be that every medical college would have a medical innovation, creativity and entrepreneurship cell. So a lot of what we do is not because this is what we're doing. This is more proof of concept. This is, hey, if we can do it, everyone else can do it. So we're kind of trying to create role models, which are so we've got a syllabus, come and spend time with us. Please come and copy our syllabus and then do it for your medical college. So it's really more proof of concept. So that's what we did for the library. That's exactly what we're doing for the medical innovation, creativity cell. So some of these things. And I think at some point, that's exactly the same thing we want to do in the entrepreneurship space. Can you provide a safe platform? The reality is there are lots of predators within the startup ecosystem, which cheat entrepreneurs, give them, all kinds of false dreams, take out money, extract them, promise them, मैं तुझको investor से introduction दिलवाऊंगा, मैं तुझको इतने पैसे करवाऊंगा, stuff like that, all of which breaks my heart. So can we create a trusted platform where, we have good guys? We will call out the bad guys, because the trouble is people know who the bad guys are, but no one does anything about it or no one identifies them, and that's why these practices are becoming even worse. So again, it comes back to the same thing again. How can you help people from a bottom-up approach by giving them that power to be able to help each other? That's what my big picture would be.
3 incidences in your life which you will never forget.
The day I got married.
That though anybody will never forget.
So then,
nobody forgets that day.
And the day both my daughters were born, because I think those are magical moments. So it's kind of your entire life changes. You wonder what it's going to be like. You're looking forward to that.
So what are the 3 advantages you found out after being a LinkedIn influencer?
Okay, there are advantages and disadvantages. And the major disadvantage is you attract all these trolls who for some reason, I don't say anything with any, I have no axe to grind, and then they will pick one particular sentence out or one word and give me a hard time. So that's a downside. But why do I continue doing it? I think, very honestly, I learned so much from the comments. And people say thoughtful things, intelligent things, interesting things, give me book recommendations which I can read. So I think it's all become a positive, virtuous cycle. That at some point I'm no longer reading just for my sake. I'm also reading because, would this be useful perhaps to some entrepreneur or to some investor, or how does this fit into our worldview? So because I enjoy reading, I enjoy writing, it's like a great sweet spot for me. Would I continue doing it even if I hadn't been a LinkedIn influencer? Yes, of course. I never did it with the intention of being one. So this is one of those pleasant side effects. But I think that's the reality in life. That if you want to zig, you should ideally zag. And interestingly, the people who make the most money are often not the ones who started off with the intention of making the most money. But because they did such a good job delighting their customers, that money came their way. So I think it's worked out well, enjoying it, and you get to learn lots of things. And even more important, you have to start experimenting with new formats. Like a video format, for example, not something which I'm comfortable about. So we keep on learning, keep on reinventing ourselves. Who knows? 5 साल के बाद VR करेंगे, AR करेंगे, MR करेंगे, कुछ ना कुछ होता ही रहेगा.
अभी करेंगे.
You were talking about a lot of broken society and you want to fix it. So what are the 3 things you want to do to fix the society?
Okay, so there is one thing which is very close to my heart, and when people talk about failures, I would count that as one of my failures. One of the things we started nearly 30 years ago was what we call patient education or information therapy. We said, why is the healthcare system so broken? Why does no one trust anyone anymore? And the only way to do that is not by talking to doctors, because good doctors are good anyway. Bad doctors don't improve just because you talk to them, and there are just too many other moving parts. What can we do to empower patients so that patients will learn to differentiate between a good doctor and a bad doctor? Patients are simple. What do they want? They want a good doctor. Doctors are simple. They also want lots of patients. So if you can marry patients with good doctors, all these problems will automatically go away. You won't need to give cuts, kickbacks or commissions. You're getting a direct route. Doctors feel satisfied because they're doing a good job. Their life is meaningful, worthwhile. And patients are happy because they're no longer going to bad doctors who cheat them. That if there is a business model behind integrating information therapy within the healthcare ecosystem, so that even before the patient goes to the doctor, the patient can read. And we think one simple solution is to make sure every doctor has their own website. If I were the health minister, I would say every time you got your MBBS degree or you passed out from the medical council, you would have to create your own website. Just think about it. Valuable digital real estate. Now it's my website. I'm a young doctor. I don't have many patients because I've just started. तो मैं दिन कर बैठ के post करूँगा. क्या post करूँगा? Things which patients need to know. Things which I've learned.
Yeah.
I would hopefully start that right from medical college itself. This would be in local languages.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing it online, I can't lie, I can't cheat, I can't write rubbish. So you'd be able to create so much content where everyone would stand to benefit. So I think those opportunities are huge. Hopefully it will happen.
But doctors have also said that some doctors also say that there is a Google doctor coming in. So
why has Google Doctor come? Because we as doctors have let our patients down. If we provided that information on our own websites, which was reliable, why would any patient go to some other thing?
Yes.
Patients don't want to go to Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins or anyone else. They want to go to, Dr. Malpani is my doctor. Dr. Malpani is providing me information.
Yeah.
Patients don't want to become doctors.
Yes.
They don't want to understand all this stuff or waste their time, because the reality is the 100 rabbit holes and everything diagnosis is cancer.
Yeah.
If doctors took up that responsibility and said, look, this is an authoritative, reliable source of information, and the Medical Council of India encouraged that, I think lots of good things would happen. The second one, coming back again to the medical profession, is I think part of the problem is we keep on teaching medical students the same old stuff which we were taught 20 years ago and 30 years ago. Maybe the textbook edition has changed, maybe the brand names have changed. But we need to teach young doctors to think out of the box.
Yes.
And yesterday's solutions aren't going to apply to tomorrow's problems. And that's why we need to teach doctors to think like engineers. We're great thinking one at a time, but we're not necessarily great at looking at the big picture or the systemic approach, which is why we've started the Medical Innovation, Creativity and Entrepreneurship Lab at JJ Hospital. Can we help doctors, young doctors who are just starting off, to start stepping back and thinking, yes, there is a possible solution. This is the way I need to think of these solutions. See, when you do medicine, you're only taught this is the right answer, and there is only one right answer. Appendix ki length kitni hai? Between 5 centimeters and assuming, whatever. I'm just saying that this is the answer in the textbook, this is what you need to vomit, regurgitate, cram, whatever, which is fine. Because when you have someone operating in you, you don't want him to be a cowboy. You want him to follow all the standard steps. It's important. But what happens when he comes across problems he hasn't come across before? What he wants to innovate. What he wants to come up with something which he's seen in other parts of the world, but wants to do it 1/10 of the cost. Doesn't know how to create a new medical device. And then you have all these engineers creating medical devices, which is great, but they don't understand a doctor's worldview or a patient's worldview. So I think that's the second bridge which I think would definitely we'd like to cross. I think the third finally is to make entrepreneurship for college students much more mainstream. Not in the sense of necessarily go do your own startup. You know, not everyone's going to do their own startup. Someone has to work in the startup, someone has to do other things at all. But I think there's so much to explore within that space. So don't box yourself up based on what the rest of the world is telling you. कि तू engineer बन सकता है, तू architect बन सकता है, तू ये बन सकता है, तू कुछ भी बन सकता है. And I think that's what entrepreneurship really the dream possibly.
So we have come to the last round of this interview, which is the rapid fire. What do you enjoy being the most? A doctor, an influencer, or an investor?
There are days when I think being a doctor is great. When someone comes and says, "Hey, I'm pregnant," you know, that just changes their whole life. So I think the amount of influence you have one at a time as a doctor is huge. With a LinkedIn influencer, the beauty is that you then impact lots and lots of people, but these are not necessarily people you have one-to-one relationship with. So if I would say depth, definitely as a doctor. If I would say breadth, then as an influencer.
So one thing that will bring doctors Aniruddha attention.
Great. I would say a good email. Because I'm good with email, and I think if you can, a lot of people have this common complaint, how do we reach out, how do we connect with people, and the reality is that was very hard 30 years ago, where it was a closed boys network, you had to get an introduction and stuff like that. I think all that's gone. So send me a well-crafted email which piques my curiosity and say, wow, that's interesting, I didn't know that, and I'll be more than happy to do that.
So one message you want to give to a college pass out?
I would say count your blessings that you're young and you're in this country. There's so much opportunity you have in front of you. There's so much to learn. So I think every day just make sure that you learn something new. As long as you do that, it doesn't matter what it's about, whether it's your hobby, whether it's your passion, whether it's work related, you'll find the world a much more exciting place. And if you find the world a more exciting place, you will make it a better place.
Yeah.
What else can you want?
Suppose you have to summarize your life in one sentence, what it would be?
What would I want on my tombstone is what you're asking me. I would say, उसने किसका नुकसान नहीं किया. I think that's fine. So I mean, on one hand, you could say that's not being very ambitious. Maybe that's not, but I still think if people say, okay, he was a good guy, didn't shaft anyone, I think I would still be happy with that.
So, what is your secret hideout? A place where you are most peaceful?
My library.
We have come to the end of this interview. I would love to thank Dr. Aniruddha for coming here on Eureka Moment and sharing his immense knowledge about investing and also being a doctor. And if you have enjoyed this video, please like,
Share.
Subscribe.
Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Conrad Coelho. I am a Latin and ballroom dance teacher. I'm going to be on Eureka Moment, so watch out for this space.